Hello everyone, my name is Michelle Sarumova, and today I will be discussing immunization exemptions and vaccines, and the policy that is implemented in the state of Arizona, and the issues that we face with schools and parents/guardians. Individuals and many parents are worried about their children going to school and daycare with other kids who do not have immunization requirements. After reading many articles, there are many parents and individuals who truly believe that vaccinations can and will protect you, but the risk of having a student who is not vaccinated near that child makes them uneasy. Despite the fight from these people, and many individuals think that government is infringing on individual rights, and this is why many states have expanded their immunization exemptions laws to accommodate those individuals. The National Conference of State Legislature stated that though people are cautious and argue over the policy on exemptions, most people are actually mainly concerned about certain vaccinations rather than vaccinations as a whole. Vaccines can prevent outbreaks of disease and save lives when a critical portion of a community is immunized against a contagious disease. Most members of the community are protected against that disease because there's little opportunity for an outbreak. Even those who are not eligible for certain vaccines, such as infants, pregnant women, or immune-compromised individuals, they get some protection because the spread of contagious disease is contained, which is known as community immunity. The state of Arizona requires that all students have the following vaccinations before they are admitted into schools. Excuse me if I do not say these names correctly. They are named kind of funky things. Diphtheria, tetanus, hepatitis A for children ages 1 through 5 in the care of Maricopa County, hepatitis B, pertussis, poliomyelitis, measles, rubella, mumps, influenza, varicella, and meningicola. According to the state policy, without a complete immunization record and/or an exemption form from the student, they will have to remain home until it is complete and they are vaccinated. On enrollment, the school administrator shall suspend the student if the administrator does not have documentary proof and the person is not exempt from the immunization. People should not be allowed to attend school without submitting documentary proof to the school administrator unless they are exempt from the immunization for religious or personal beliefs or medical beliefs. Now, working in education, I have witnessed issues with the exemption forms, and that is mainly why I wanted to talk about this policy. I worked at a school where we had a lot of students from Central Asia and India, and we also had many natural-born white Caucasian students coming into the school. And it was a competitive school to get into, and students needed that spot right away at all times. And because it was a public charter, we didn't have a nurse on board, and our registrar followed all these immunization records. And my fear was, I don't know what other schools are going through this. These schools are being built all over the nation, and I don't know if this policy is being mended to how these schools want it to be. So what would happen is we would have students coming in and discussing, immunization records, and we would be checking off, did you get your varicella, your rubella, your hepatitis A, B, all the shots, and if they missed one, you would see a front desk assistant who knows nothing about vaccinations say, that's okay that you missed this vaccination. Here is an exemption form on personal beliefs. If you just fill this out, your student can be admitted and start school today or start on the first day of school. And this way you have more time to go and complete your vaccinations. And the reason behind it is because the school wanted to keep their enrollment up. If you keep your enrollment up, your school is still going to be a valid school and it will remain open. Also, the school didn't want to suspend students because the higher number of suspensions, the lower funds that you receive from the state. Now, working there, I thought, this isn't right. You can't influence people to be exempt from a vaccination. If that is a choice of an individual, then they on their own will say, I need an exemption form. It shouldn't be a woman or a man who's sitting at a front desk and says, I have no medical background, I know nothing about immunization records, but I do know that the school needs to stay up and running. Therefore, I will present to you this exemption form. And because of it, other parents at the schools were getting frustrated because they don't want their students going to school with students who are not vaccinated, especially if it's not for legitimate religious, medical, or personal beliefs. So how can we be certain that schools' records are up to date? And how can the Department of Education be sure that the schools are being honest with their exemption forms and they're not just handing them over to individuals who come into the schools? Parents are not coming into schools thinking about vaccinations. They're not coming in thinking, oh, I forgot to give my kid their measles shot. They want their kid to get into the best school at that time. So Arizona and other states like Oregon, they have created online databases for the administrators to be able to log into and check that the students have completed their vaccination forms before you bring the student to school. But an issue with that is many physicians, medical experts, nurses, whoever is updating these forms are not going into these online databases and doing that. So the plan that was implemented for it, in theory, is a good idea, but it's not coming out to turn out to the benefit of administrators and parents. So the plan on vaccinations, exemptions to all states, their policies, each state has their own policy on exemptions and vaccinations and immunization records. They all seem to be clear and concise, and the issues stated above, I believe, need to be resolved with new government employees. So I suggest for this policy to implement another section of it and add that the Department of Education or Human and Health Services has a required worker for each school district to go and audit strictly on immunization records. This could cause states to have to reallocate their Department of Education budgets or their Department of Health and Human Services budgets, but it can really help schools know, I'm going to be audited and I need to be honest about this. So we might have to raise a tax in order to be able to hire and keep these people coming in to schools and doing their job, but this will prevent the exemption forms being handed over. So my suggestion is that we create this new job and implement it into the policy that there's an audit for all exemptions and vaccinations. And if an auditor comes into your school and sees all these students who are not vaccinated, then they right then and there will say this student is suspended. And it won't be an excused absence like the school that I worked at did. It would really be an actual suspension. And also, while this auditor, he or she, while they are going through all the records, if there are any students who are exempt, they would have to contact the parent or guardian of the student that is exempt and say, is this an exemption form that you chose to have for your student? And if so, you need to fill out this follow-up form that states this exemption form is legitimate. If not, then the school is penalized and they face a fee. I wouldn't exactly know how that would work out, but somehow in it they would get the exemption form clarified and verified that these families are either, yes, this was my thought, this is my religious, personal, or medical belief, or no, I just forgot to do it. And that way the auditor knows and they know what's going on at the schools, and the state knows which school districts and which schools, public, private, public charters, private charters, they need to focus on. The United States Health Department states that vaccines can prevent outbreaks of disease and save lives. When a critical portion of a community is immunized against contagious disease, most members of the community are protected against that disease because there is little opportunity for an outbreak. Even those who are not eligible for the certain vaccines, such as infants, pregnant women, or immune-compromised individuals, get some protection because the spread of contagious disease is contained. I stated this earlier in my video, and I want to state it again because it is important that individuals know vaccines are helpful to communities, and it shouldn't be up to school staff, teachers, employees, to decide whether or not they need the numbers for their school to be going up. It's for the greater good and the health of the students and the employees, adults that are going to be at the schools. Also, it will allow parents and guardians of students who are vaccinated to feel more safe that their student is going to a school like this. Creating a policy implementation critique for this immunization exemption policy for vaccines was difficult, but I understood that there is a lot that goes to vaccines than just, you take your kid to get a shot. And I would like to see change in schools, and I would like to see, a change maybe in the state, that people start to believe in vaccines again rather than thinking that they are going to harm them. There have been issues with vaccines, but there are plans and implementations that are being taken into place right now to help these issues. So I hope that one day my suggestions can help this policy, and if it has to raise taxes, then let's raise taxes, because the safety of the children of a community is more important than the money of public charters, private schools remaining open. Thank you, and have a nice day.